Hi, I'm going to talk to you about something that is really difficult for me to talk about. It's pretty off-brand for me, actually. I always stay in the light. And this topic is very heavy and dark. And in fact, if you have any children in earshot of this video, there may be things said in this video that they should not hear. So know that. Maybe walk away. But it's really important that we all engage with this. I know right now, politically, there's a lot going on, but you have an opportunity to do something really good. So listen, I live in Los Angeles, and a few months ago, the billboards were around town about the feature film about the Menendez brothers. And the tagline was something with the word monsters in it. And I knew as soon as I saw that, I was like, what did those parents do to those boys? That's like, that was just the immediate knowing of like, it's not the kids that are the monsters. What did the parents do? So, I get very little TV time, and I don't like engaging with things that make me feel icky. So it was a couple months before, and the curiosity of just like, what happened there? What did those parents do? The curiosity just kept getting to me. So one evening when my husband had the kids away, I watched the documentary, not the feature film, the documentary. And it took me 3 times to get through it because it was so emotionally difficult for me to watch. I had to just stop. Like my heart was breaking. I was bawling. I could not believe what I was watching. I couldn't take it all in one sitting. And I had stopped watching it when there was 20 minutes left, and it was so painful for me to see the testimony, and so shocking the public response that there was no sympathy for these boys. And I just had to use my voice and say something, but I knew I had to finish watching the rest of the 20 minutes so I would be informed about everything that was said in that documentary before I made a video about it. I could not believe the lack of sympathy from the public. Hearing those boys testify about the violent sexual abuse that they endured from the time they were 6 years old. Now, let me tell you something. If someone was raping me and I killed them in self-defense, I would not go to prison. And that would be a one-time thing. For these men to go to prison for life, for self-defense, for enduring that for an entire childhood violently and believing that their father would kill them, for those boys, and they were boys because psychology, we know now, the adolescent brain is until 25 years old. So we can say as adults, like, well, they could have done this or that. Remember, this was a time that there wasn't a recording device in their pocket where they could have gotten video proof the way we can now. So for the public to not have sympathy and just refer to them as, the rich boys, the privileged boys, are you kidding me? Nothing about the way that they grew up was privileged. Who cares about the square footage of your home or your tennis lessons when you're being violently assaulted on a regular basis and are terrified of your parents and go to your mother for help and she doesn't protect you? And then you have Jay Leno making jokes and Saturday Night Live writing skits about, the wealthy boys in their sweaters and cracking jaw drop for the lack of humanity and the lack of sympathy. Now, maybe the documentary chose a clip that Jay Leno had done before the boys' testimony. Okay, let's hope. But I don't know how anybody, after hearing that testimony, because the court case was live on television, I don't know how the public could let something like this happen. And that's why I'm making this video. And I'm so happy to see that there is a TikTok movement already. And I didn't know that until I finally watched after a week of like going crazy. Like, I have to say something about this, but I have to finish watching. So I have all the information that's available. there is quite a public response out there saying this is unjust, this is wrong. The documentary, I mean, the information that was presented, it's so obviously unjust that it's positively perplexing. For instance, the first trial was a hung jury, it was 6 and 6. So it had to go into a second trial, which was right after the O.J. Simpson case. So in the documentary, it says, oh, the district attorney's office really needed a win. What? To have a sort of a political bias underneath this case or any case, I mean, jurors are only allowed in once they've proven that they don't have a bias, or they have to raise their hand to not be biased, right? And to have like a whole political agenda, like, oh, the district attorney's office really needed a win. And so all of the evidence of the abuse was not allowed into the trial the second time. Why? That was the reason. That was the self-defense. And it wasn't allowed. So the only choice that the jury had to make was either they got off without anything or life imprisonment. That was the only two options. How rigged is that? This was a self-defense case, and they didn't allow for that. What? Justice system, we need to do better than that. We need to do better. These men need to be out of prison, and you can do something about that by going to the website here. Somebody put that up. Also, there's a link to a Google Doc that I wrote. And if you click it, you have all editing permissions. Do a copy make a copy of that letter to Gavin Newsom, and, put your own name in the bottom and send it. And you can find his email and send it, or actually send it in the mail, because it might have more effect. Because we cannot dismiss childhood sexual abuse victims this way. Yes, they went insane. No, I'm going to probably have people leaving comments like, oh, so you condone killing? Well, obviously, of course not. Tell authorities. But can any man watching this say that had you been raped by your father, and sometimes with a knife at your neck, violently, since you were 6 years old, you tell me in your adolescent mind how you might seek safety, how you might seek self-perseverance. This should have always been a manslaughter case, and those men have now served 3 times the sentence of what it should have been for manslaughter. And from what I see and what I feel, they would be quite a contribution to society if they're let free. So please go to justiceforerikandlyle.org and go to this Google Doc, print it out, and mail it to Gavin Newsom. The website, justiceforerikandlyle.org, is an email to the Attorney General's office. Is it the Attorney General or the District Attorney? It's to one of those. I didn't set that one up, but from what I can see in the case, it keeps changing what office it is. And so it may be more effective to just send it to Gavin Newsom via mail, use an envelope and a stamp. We have to take a stand. The prosecutor in the case, Pamela Bonzanchi or something, this woman had no sympathy. I cannot imagine being in a room, hearing their testimony and having zero sympathy. I mean, that is literally the definition of a psychopath, of a sociopath. And then in the documentary, at the end, she says, well, she makes it known. She says, we have guns. We have guns all over the property. So if any of you TikTokers get any ideas, what is that implying? If she's guns, she's going to use it. So she's justified in shooting someone if someone goes on her property, but she doesn't think that 2 young boys that were sexually abused from the time they were 6 years old were justified in using the gun in the way they did. Are you kidding me? The hypocrisy is absurd. And you know what else she said? So twice she commented on winning. When she was asked, was she happy that the boys didn't win the first time when she was the prosecutor? She said, no, I wasn't happy. I didn't win. And then the second time she was asked, were you happy when they got convicted? And she's like, well, yeah, of course I was happy. Or she didn't say of course. She said, well, yeah, I was happy that the boys got convicted, but I wasn't happy because I didn't win it. And what's crazy is that she doesn't even know how politically incorrect that is in our culture now. Like, you can't say things like that. Like, are you serious, woman? Like, this is two men's lives, boys that were violently abused from the time they were 6 years old, had the worst experience that you could possibly imagine. And to her, it's just like about winning. And she says that freely as if it's in any way acceptable to say. This is who our district attorney was. Another thing I find super appalling and surprising was the assumption, like the news was reporting all of this. It was all like on the news that the assumption was that they did this for money. And first of all, like, how does news report insane assumptions that are actually so fucking stupid? Children that grow up wealthy don't have a thought in their mind about money. It's not ever a thought in their head. They have it. It's like air. We don't think about air unless we're in a confined space and we don't have enough of it. The idea that they would kill their parents for money and that was all over the news and that made an impression on people, that it's like the media really should have been fucking sued for that. Honestly, like that is so, and it's like the worst, it's like the worst writing ever. You know, it's like as a writer, that's like the most trite bullshit thing that that you could even think of is like, oh, they kill for money. And like, no. And then to not believe them when they actually say why. You know how you believe them? You know how you know that they're telling the truth? Because they fucking killed their parents. That's how you know they told the truth. And you tell me if you don't think it was justified. Huh? To have any insinuation that those guys were lying is inhumane. And I cannot believe that, at least as far as the documentary showed, that the public was so dismissive. The other thing that was super unjust about the second trial was that the boys didn't testify. Erik and Lyle didn't testify because their testimony is the sexual abuse. And because that wasn't allowed into the court, then they didn't take the stand. And so the jury didn't know anything about the cause of why it happened. I mean, to me, that is not a justice. That is not a whole trial. That's how in the world did that happen? And this is why this matters. This is why we speak up, because the justice system failed. They took two adolescents who did a trauma-induced crime. These two boys had been violently raped from the time they were 6 years old, their entire childhood. They have a temporary insanity, violently induced insanity, crime, self-defense. They not only get life imprisonment, but they get separated and they get chains and they get treated like violent criminals, like people that go into schools and shoot them up and go into churches and just shoot random people. They got treated like that. They should not have been treated like that. They should not have ever been separated. Isn't prison supposed to be about rehabilitation? It should be. So how is that helping to rehabilitate traumatized adolescents? To separate them and make it worse. Their heartache, it's so sad that this is what our justice system did. And we need to correct this. So please write a letter to Gavin Newsom. Please go to the Google Doc link. I've written it for you. Just copy it, put your name on it, and send it. The address is there. You can also click the link and send an email. And use your voice to say, we need a justice system that's actually just. These men should get out and they would be an amazing contribution to society, no doubt about it. Please take 1 minute of your time, 2 minutes of your time to just do something good for somebody else. Thank you. And please share this. Please share. Thank you.